All right. So I was like, more of a in the arms of the angels, a sadder topic. Bryce Young being benched, and is it truly done for him? I do think he'll get back to playing sometime this year for the Panthers. I think almost I was like, to me, like I said in the video when I was talking about him getting benched, to me, this is really kind of, I like funny enough, like the Chicago Bears, who they traded with and probably destroyed their base, partly destroyed their organization by trading up for him and having to give the Bears all this stuff and all this capital in order to basically help them get Caleb Williams, which is Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. Which, hey, I don't know if I can do it, but somebody got to do that domino effect of the Bears causing the Panthers to basically be partly the reason why they in this situation. But anyway, the part I'm saying is the fact that it's like Justin Fields had to figure. I was like, we had to see if he's the guy. I was like, they partially did it 2 years ago, traded out, and I was like, didn't draft a quarterback. But because of the Panthers trade, they ended up having the number one pick, even though they played fairly well. But they didn't play fairly well with Justin Fields in order to keep him as the quarterback. Plus, they had to pay him. That's really the reason why. If he had like a couple of years on the rookie contract, they would have kept him. But besides the point, Bryce Young is already still here. Now, on one hand, you could say, hey, he in the second year, he still technically got 3 more years. Uh, before they got to do anything. Problem is that you at this weighing point of being like, is he anything or do we just give up on him? And I believe that we go by how they've already shown how they are with coaches and with the previous quarterbacks. They're going to probably get rid of him and move on, and get one of the quarterbacks next year. I just think that's how they're going to do it. That's how Tepper is. He's just going to keep on doing something until he finds something that just seems like his business mind in that type of way. I guess maybe that's what he want to say. But with that being said, Bryce, if he's on the outs, like, should he ask for a trade this year? I think he should. If he has enough pull, I think he should. But I don't think he would. I also don't know if you. I was like, I don't know to the point that you also can when you haven't. Like, I do think at the same time, like, yeah, you can go. Like, I was like, I would ask for one, but at the same time, I haven't played well in order for somebody to really get anything worth a damn with it for me that the team will trade you. Because I was like, at this point, what you looking at, like a fourth round pick maybe? I was like, Trey Lance went for a second. I like Mac Jones went for a six. Justin Fields went for a six. So you have to figure maybe somewhere in there because he's not on at the end of his contract like they was. So probably maybe a third at that. But he's also, I was like, it's weird because I was like, they did. I was like, those trade for those quarterbacks. I was like, Trey Lance was going for a second. To be honest, it's Cowboy dumb. But they trade him at the early point of the season, so that's why I was a little bit more there. Then I was like, and that's why I think you could probably get something similar for Bryce Young than Matt Jones, who needs a contract, as Fields who needs a contract. While they have shows signed that Matt Jones, I think he got them to the playoffs as well too. Didn't give you nothing. But with that being said, whether it's in this season or next season. I was like, the reason I say more so this season because I could see someone trying to be like trying to do like trades now. I was like, you see more trade in season for people to get players so they can evaluate them to see if they want them in the off season more so. And so that's been like a different route, where you could think of Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and stuff like the players like that who played halfway through the year, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool, they're either gonna stay with our team or don't. Quarterback's obviously a little different. Trey Lance was training like during the season and stuff like that. And obviously did well enough in order to stick. Um, I was like, the reason I say that is because I was like, next year when it's like you're gonna know what free agency is and all that other stuff is that yeah, you could just be like pluck them out of nowhere and then try to have like some quarterback competition, or you could bring them onto a team depending on what kind of team you are and see what he has now and evaluate him now, see what it's fine at, see if you can reconstruct them and all that other stuff in order to see where you are at by the end of the season. I was like, he's still on a rookie deal, so it wouldn't hurt you at all in any type of way. So I was like, it really is more reward than it is actually a risk. Now, that being said, I was like, some teams I think that he's a go for, whether the team needs a quarterback or the team is in the position where they can take a quarterback. I think that does sort of matter. I was like the Raiders. They got Gardner Minshew right now, and I think Gardner Minshew is a good bridge quarterback. I think he can be a starter, but you are looking for your next quarterback. I was like, only person behind him is Aiden O'Connell. Bryce Young could go there, and I was like, I'm not saying that the Raiders are. I was like, the Raiders are way better than what the Panthers are. I was like, they got a confident defense, and they're probably going to reconstruct their offense. To be honest, too, I was like, I just felt like they just didn't get a quarterback in the draft in order to do so. They got two good tight ends. I like you're going to probably get rid of Devontae Adams, but you'll probably switch them for something like that. And they got Myers there too, so I was like, they got some weapons there. I was like, their offensive line is decent, not good, but it's decent. But I was like, you got a young head coach too. I was like, you go ahead and get yourself a quarterback. I do think that they will sort of want to get their quarterback, but I was like, it's a cost low situation. Gardner Minshew is a smaller quarterback, not like Bryce Young, but he's a smaller quarterback, not also as athletic either and stuff like that too. So I think he would be able to fit in the system as well. And also the Raiders at some point, I was like, look, they might be over here trying to get themselves in. I was like, where things start going downhill and they start trading off a couple of the assets, like I said, Devontae Adams, that maybe you pick them up. But I was like, but at the same time, if you're going to get a top pick, would you rather just get your own top pick and get them into your facility, your culture, than trying to take on this, trying to rehab this whole reclamation project kind of thing? I was like, Miami. I think that's another squad that I was like, I could see. I was like, Tua, I was like, Bryce Young coming from Alabama. They both are smaller quarterbacks. So I was like, small in frame. I was like, don't have like the strongest arm. I was like, I was like, there's the weapons are there. The weapons are there. I was like, McDaniels being the quarterback coach that he is and stuff like that, scheming up stuff. I was like, he seemed like I was like, he was able to flip Tua around and get his mind right and get him ready to go. And all the stuff from Brian Fuller and stuff, who better to also take this guy who's also been mentally mind fucked or whatever, and also try to fix him as well too. I was like, the system that he runs as well, I was like, he would probably do well in the West Coast system with all that as well. So I was like, I think that would probably be, but I was like, a perfect fit. And also the fact that you do not know what Tua's situation is. If Tua was able to play, you don't have to worry about Bryce Young. Like, oh, don't look over your shoulder. They paid him the money. He's an established quarterback. You don't have to look over your shoulder and be like, is this guy going to take my job? The only way he really takes your job is if you over here being hurt and concussed, how he has been at times. But I think it gives you a good insurance policy where, like, if something happens to Tua again, or Tua decides to be like, you know what, I can't do this. Guess what? You got a young, cheap option right there that played in a very similar manner than Tua, and I think that will work out perfectly. It's a low risk, high reward type of thing in the situation that the Dolphins are in. The 49ers, speaking of, I think this also will be a really good spot, just like the Dolphins. I was like, they have the weapons around them. They got Kyle Shanahan and the way that he runs that offense. He shows that you don't need to be this top level quarterback in order to do his stuff. Doesn't mean that you don't have to be a good quarterback. You just don't have to be this top level. And to me, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy, very similarity. I was like, I think Brock Purdy got a lot more speed and wiggle to him, or whatever. But they got about the same type of arm. I was like, the system that they run, I was like, Bryce can run that one. I was like, I know he been bad in Carolina, but I was like, all his stuff at Alabama just doesn't go away. I was like, you got a really good defense. I was like, and plus also Brock Purdy had put himself to where once he gets his money, he's also not going to have to look over his shoulder like, oh, this guy's the first pick. He don't have to worry about that or whatever. I was like, but it'd be a good insurance policy, especially because Kyle Shanahan also at a time was also keeping quarterbacks on there that he could see that have something in them. I was like, from Sam Darnold, that he had Jimmy Garoppolo and made him look like somebody, Nick Mullins and all these other players as well too. So I was like, I think that'd be another perfect spot where it's like he also don't have to worry about nothing. He could just sit there as well too. Now teams that probably not the best situation, but I was like, they might be in a more dire situation. So the Titans, we don't know how this Will Levis thing is going. I was like, they got rid of Malik Willis, but I was like, Will Levis right now is a little shaky, and I was like, you just got a new coach there, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, this really seems like Will Levis' year to prove it. If he don't approve it this year, I don't think they're gonna stick with him. They only spent a 4th-round pick on him. When it looks good, it looks good. He looks like a competent quarterback. But when it looks bad, it's like, what the hell are you doing out here, my guy? The defense is fine. I was like, to where it's like they keep him in games. Levis is always just ruins the game for him. But I was like, that's a team that could maybe not be able to have a top pick, because I was like, I think they will be able to win games where they're not going to have like a top pick to get one of the 3 quarterbacks, at least at this time. To where they might be like, where Callahan might just look at it and be like, hey, I can work with this dude here. I was like, it won't cost us nothing. We'll bring in a veteran if all else fails or whatever like that, but it won't cost us nothing until we have the proper way to get a quarterback or something like that. Because I was like, so I was like, I think I could see that as a spot. And the other spot I could see as well, we're talking about like poo-poo teams, is the Giants. The problem, I'll say the problem is you don't know if Dable's going to be there next year. And I was like, it's sort of looking like it's not. That team doesn't really have, I was like, outside of neighbors, I was like, the talent on the team or whatever. But I was like, but if Dable stay, he has worked with quarterbacks to where I feel like he'll be able to work around it. And I was like, it won't cost them nothing. They're still rebuilding the team. I was like, they're still trying to figure things out. But I think it's still a better situation than what is the Panthers. And saying that too, I was like, we seen how when DeVito, Taylor, all them quarterback got into the Giants, they looked way better than Daniel Jones did with the same type of skill group of people. So maybe it's not the team, maybe it just might be the quarterback. And I was like, if there's a guy that could come up there and basically give you the stoic face and not, really say too much or whatever like that you need for the Giants media, I was like, that'd be the guy. Now, granted, they don't have that many quarterbacks that look like Bryce, but I was like, but if you want somebody competent, I was like, but they might also just want a big ass quarterback too at the same time. Yeah, I was like, but now going to the teams that I was like, now the other teams, I think the Browns could be intriguing. I was like, Kevin Stefanski has already had a smaller quarterback in Baker Mayfield, where it's just like, do my scheme, and I was like, he'll look good. And so I was like, and they got a defense that's going to keep them in games all the time. I was like, I think their line is a lot better than what Deshaun Watson had it looks like. I do think they still sort of need weapons on the offensive side, but at the same time, I was like, we really don't. But then maybe they don't, and it's just that Deshaun just looked that bad. But I think also Deshaun just looks that bad. And the thing is, you can't really get rid of Deshaun for like another 2 years or something like that. But 2 or 3 years. But that's the same about a time that Bryce Young's on his contract. So you can have him there. And yes, in one sense, it's like he's not going to take Deshaun Watson's job because he's getting so much money. But you do have somebody there that you could build in the background where it's ready the time to go. God, Bryce Young is still young enough that if he has to take over after 2 years, it'd be like a Jordan Love situation where he's just waiting for his turn, and then when he's ready to be unleashed, he would be. That way he could sort of sit, everybody sort of forgets they're Cleveland, and it don't matter in that same type of way. Nobody, people will be calling for Bryce because Deshaun Watson is that bad, but he could just sit there and just wait and mature, and then you could just let him see what he has by the time that, because I was like, guess what? By the time it's that 1 year of Deshaun Watson contract, they'll probably bench him because it's like, well, we ain't got to put him out there. We just gonna eat that damn money and just have his ass sit while we just let's see what Bryce Young got. I was like, that's just a plan that he could do. I was like, Rams is another one. Stafford basically getting long in the tooth. Oh, you got Sean McVay there. And I was like, and his play calling with Cooper and Puka, that I'm like, hey, you go over there, get some toolage over one of the dudes that seem to do well in offensive systems and stuff like that. And you don't have to rush because Stafford's there, but you do have a contingency plan just in case, because you're never going to be in a spot to get a quarterback. I was like, they're always just grabbing people at the bottom. So I was like, why not just take somebody with the talent that was able to go in the first round for very low and just send them on that team. And especially that they have to go to a rebuild, but Stafford still is going to stick around. I was like, he could sit back there and just gain up all that knowledge without having to rush to play after being in the shitty Panthers. And my last team is the Detroit Lions, for basically sort of the same reason of the Rams, but they're never going to be at a spot to get a quarterback. I was like, they just paid Jared Goff, and I was like, but Bryce Young doesn't cost anything being on a rookie contract. He has time to sit there. Jared Goff is a stable enough quarterback to where even if you could see his limitations, he's never not going to be able to have the team in a position where they're competing for the playoffs or in the playoffs, which means that you're not going to be, like I said, you're not going to have a chance for the top quarterback. So therefore, take a low risk. I was like, they've been really good at drafting and using their draft picks. That using this one won't hurt them. Actually, it'll probably be to a benefit because, like I said, who are you really grabbing in some of these low spots? So you might as well get a dude that is young enough to be with that core of like young people of Panay and Hutchinson, Jameson Williams. You still got St. Brown, Jamar Gibbs. I was like, all their players is young, so why don't you just grab another young player to be with them and sit in the back while they're doing it with Jared Goff? Because I was like, because if all else failed, even he doesn't reach his ceiling, he could do what Jared Goff does. I was like, Jared Goff is immobile. Jared Goff needs a good pocket. I was like, Bryce Young is more mobile than Jared Goff, but I'm just saying that. I'm like, if you already do anything for Jared Goff, then I was like, getting Bryce Young is just going to be even better. I was like, neither one of them have a crazy arm like that. And I was like, accuracy is really more a part of the game. Goff can sometimes just not be accurate, or whatever. But I was like, that would be a low risk, high reward type of a maneuver in that spot to where I was like, the rest of the team, and I was like, if they keep the same crew, they'd be good to go. But anyway, I was like, those are just some of the places I feel like Bryce Young, if he does go either this year, which I would say that you should do, just because I was like, you get him into the building already, or whatever, instead of waiting until the off season where you're trying to figure out your team or whatever like that. You already pretty much got your. And I was like, in a lot of these, I was like, except for like a couple of the places, you already got a quarterback there that's established. So therefore, it's no harm, no foul. To compare to the other team that may have a top draft pick that's like, I'm not about to, if I got a top draft pick, why am I going to get this guy when I could get my own guy at the same time? But these are really the only places you could really think of that's like, I could see him going. I was like, yeah, you could say the Steelers because they might not keep Fields or Russell Wilson, but I was like, I just don't know if he would fit that environment in that same way, just because I was like the type of ruggedness that they play in that division and stuff like that. And then for the most part, everybody else got a quarterback or a young enough backup that seemed like they have promise, like Seattle. They got Kenny Pickett. I was like, I think not Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett with the Eagles. I was like, I forgot to do. He played for the Commanders last year, but I was like, they got a young enough dude. I was like, Seattle might not be a bad one to be either, though. To be honest, I was like, that seemed like that'd be a good spot too. Because I was like, Sam Howell, he's not established enough to where I was like, he can't lose his backup job. Yeah, but I was like, let me know if there's some other teams that or you want him to get picked up for your squad, and let me know how that goes. But until then, peace. I'm out.